Now, I'd like to invite our honorary chair, Dean Hollis, to introduce this afternoon's keynote speaker.
Thank you, Gene, and thanks to all of you for joining us this afternoon. I'm honored to sit on the Project Harmony Board of Directors. I'm proud of the work Project Harmony has been able to achieve. Most importantly, I am thankful and amazed by the level of commitment, dedication, and innovation from the people within the Project Harmony organization. To those of you working on the front lines day in and day out to protect the children in our community, Lisa and I appreciate you, and we thank you. We know it's emotionally grueling and can be a thankless job at times, but please know your efforts are so important, so appreciated, and you are making a difference. Child abuse is a community-wide issue, requiring a community-wide solution. It's incumbent that each of us, all of us, help protect and advocate on behalf of all of our children. By coordinating the community-wide care with our children between the various agencies, Project Harmony provides a safe place where children have the courage to use their words and where healing begins, where children are taken from crisis to courage. With your help and unwavering support, Project Harmony can continue to be a leader among child advocacy centers nationwide. I truly believe together, as a community, we can end child abuse. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Diana Nyad, swimmer, author, advocate, and child abuse survivor. As a water lover myself and a diver, swimming 110 miles from Havana, Cuba to Key West, Florida is no small feat. I have a great appreciation for Diana's determination and resiliency. She could have given up at any point, but on the 5th attempt, Diana made history and now uses her experience to lift up the voices of other survivors. Please help me welcome Diana Nyad.
Diana Nyad started as a competitive swimmer at just 7. By 22, she took a dip and made a huge splash swimming 28 miles around the island of Manhattan. Soon after, she decided to embark on a much more ambitious journey, swimming more than 100 miles from Cuba to Key West, Florida. But that would become a far more elusive goal.
The Cuba swim is rough. I think I'm capable of making it.
In 1978, she tried and failed and officially retired from swimming on her 30th birthday.
I thought to myself, I will never swim another stroke in my life.
But at the age of 60, Diana shocked the world and returned to conquer the dream that had eluded her for decades.
Now to Diana Nyad, all eyes on the legendary athlete making one more attempt to swim from Cuba to Florida.
Finally, on her 5th attempt, September 2nd, 2013, Diana became the first person to swim from Cuba to Florida without a shark cage.
We should never, ever give up.
After 36 years, she once again emerged from the sea victorious.
You're never too old to chase your dream. That's right.
Hello, Project Harmony, and welcome to my home. As you can see, we're in something I call the Cuba Room, and I know you know what that's all about. Right here, a mural of the beautiful cobblestone streets of Havana with the American cars. And I'll tell you the truth. I don't want to go back to my past and look at the big Cuba swim. It was big. It was history. It was the largest event of my life. And sit around all day, you know, reminiscing on the past, celebrating, you know, that final victory there. I want to move on, and I am moving on. But there are lessons learned from that story that I'm going to share with you today. And I must say that I do enjoy watching the video you just saw, because I will never, ever look that old again, no matter how old I get. So that's part of the fun of it. Isn't it true that over this pandemic year plus, all of us have had to dig down? The word resilience has become the word of our times. We, all of us, have in some way, hopefully, you know, not in egregious ways for all of you, but we have worked through, we've suffered through health issues, clearly, and financial issues, and homeschooling issues, and learning how to virtually work from home. And we've had to reinvent ourselves. And I look at, you guys at Project Harmony, and I think, well, wait a second, resilience is nothing new for you. This is your way of life, to every day deal with children who are being hurt, to deal with children who might be hurt, and what can you do to prevent it. You've had to every day learn a different situation and bring in all those professionals around you. A couple of years ago, I had the privilege of visiting the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center, and I was blown away by the campus that they've created. And now I understand in Omaha, you have something that is brilliant and that is providing that kind of huge level of success. And I'll tell you the truth, I can't wait to visit your campus in Omaha and be inspired the way I was in Dallas. So I've, you know, I don't want to overstate it, but I become someone who's known as a person of gravitas in the world of resilience. My story has resonated, and I'm so lucky for it, around the world. I feel so honored to perhaps lend a little bit of guidance in this world of resilience. And this past year, I myself have been reading the autobiographies, let's say, of Nelson Mandela. In that cell on Robbins Island, I visited that cell, freezing cold year round with the Antarctic sea winds coming through those little slats of windows at the top for 27 years. Nelson Mandela imagined who he could be, what good he could do, what leader he could rise up to if he ever got out of there, and if he got out in time to have some of his vitality left. This past year, I've revisited my friendship, acquaintanceship would be a better way to put it, with Christopher Reeve. In one moment, in a heartbeat, falling from his horse, went from superhero, he literally played Superman on the big silver screen, to quadriplegic. And for 9 years, virtually, Christopher Reeve didn't complain. He lived in that contraption of a ventilator unit that he had to live in. And he decided to rise up and present that handsome face, still looking like Superman with all his hardship, because he believed in stem cell research. He believed that one day the severing of the spinal cord would be a solvable medical issue. So here you are, Dean Hollis, all of you, sponsors, organizers, donors, people out in the community rising up, you know, the care and the devotion to the kids in your community. Here you are, brimming with resilience. Do you need to hear my story? Perhaps not. But if it can be of any help to you, if it can spark something that you're already doing, I'm here to share that story with you. You know, I'm often asked, in my lifetime, and I've been privileged, I've been around the world. I like to think that I've, you know, seen all stripes of people and believe that we are all equal, all 7 billion of us under the sky, and we all deserve respect and water to drink and hope to be alive within us. It's hard for me to say that a supposed sporting event would have been so far the highlight of my life, but that Cuba swim was far more than a sporting event. That Cuba swim, to me, was the nth degree of drilling down into one's potential. It was an emblem of the courage to fail, because since 1950, the greatest swimmers in the world, men, women, young, strong, had been trying that crossing. And the obstacles out there are so many, so huge, death-defying, not to hyperbolize it, that nobody had ever succeeded. There's also the connection between the United States and Cuba. There was a moment when a swimmer going across, and it turned out to be me, would be that image of someone who doggedly raised the left arm and the right arm and the left arm and the right arm to reach that other shore. I was honored to be invited into the Oval Office with President Obama when I finished. And he told me that that swim, touching that shore of Key West, was the moment that we could all learn that our two countries surely could do some talking, could do some forgiving, and we could come back together. And actually, my story, the swim itself, was a 35-year project. So that's, let's say, close to half a lifetime, at least a third of a lifetime. But the truth is, my story goes way back and becomes a lifelong story, that Cuba swim. It's deep. It's more than sport, as I say. To start at the very beginning, I had a Greek father who was dramatic. Actually, he was more than dramatic. He was histrionic. Every day was an emotional exaltation for Aristotle Zenith Nyad. He would wake us kids up at 3:30 in the morning, tears standing in his eyes, his thick accent, those buzzing Z's and those rolling R's. Kids, I have just been to the ocean. It is a Rembrandt painting. It will change your lives. Hurry up, we must go see it. We would say, Dad, we have school in just a couple of hours. We have to sleep. I am your father, no? I am here to teach you the lessons of life, no? Lesson number one, most important lesson of all, sleep is highly overrated. Get up. 20 minutes later, the whole family strolling along the ocean's edge, the amber moonlight from our ankles out to forever on the ocean's surface. It was a Rembrandt painting. It changed our lives. Well, on my 5th birthday, my father called me into the den. He had Webster's big, fat, unabridged dictionary open. His hands were resting on the pages. Again, tears standing in his eyes. And he called to me, darling, you are coming here. I have been waiting for this day, for you to turn 5. Because, darling, this is the day I am going to tell you the most important thing I will ever tell you. Come here, darling. Your name, my name, the name of my Greek people. It is in the bold black and white, the important book, the dictionary. Yeah, that's right, darling. Tomorrow, you will go to your little preschooler. You will ask your little friends, is their name in the dictionary? They will tell you, no, you are the only one. Come here, darling. I'm going to show you. I'm going to read for you. Look, Nyad. In Greek mythology, my Greek people, the nymphs that swam in the lake, river, ocean, and fountain to protect for the gods. Definition number 2, this is the modern definition. This is the special one for you, darling. Nyad, girl or woman, champion, swimmer. Oh my God, darling, this is your destiny. Well, I didn't know what destiny was. I was only 5. But I'll tell you, the word I heard that day was champion. And I went walking around with my shoulders just a little bit higher. It wasn't too long after that, elementary school, I had a geography teacher who was an ex-Olympic swimmer. He said that any kid who came out for the swim team would get an A in geography. I've learned that a lot of athletes start their careers this way. I was at the pool the next day. He had everybody swimming up and down. He wanted to see what he had. I stopped after about 15 minutes in this lane here, and he was standing over the lane. And he yelled down. He pointed to me, hey, you kid, what's your name again? And I yelled up, Nyad. And he said, Nyad, you're going to be the best swimmer in the world if you want to work that hard. Well, it turns out I did want to work that hard. I was drawn to the discipline of the sport. It became 4:30 in the morning, every morning, never an alarm clock needed. It became 1,000 sit-ups every night, elbow to knee, every one, never 999. And by age 9, I was a little champion pool swimmer in the state of Florida. And one day, the Cuban Revolution broke out. Literally in one day, thousands of Cubans flooded into my hometown. These became my best friends. We were flying the Cuban flag. We were dancing salsa in their backyards. We were eating Cuban food. We had a mystique buzzing in my hometown, I dare say the world over that forbidden island right off our shores. My parents used to go dance at the Hotel Nacional, just where Jackie Kennedy and JFK danced for many years. It was the playground of the rich and famous, and fishermen and sailors and all kinds of lovers of colonial architecture and music and art and the beauty of the island of Cuba. And now it was forbidden. I stood on the shore at age 9 with my mom one day, and I said, "Mom, I know Cuba's out there somewhere, but I can't see it. Where is it?" She said, "Well, it is. It's right over the horizon here. As a matter of fact, this way, actually more this way here. As a matter of fact, it's so close that you little champion swimmer, you could almost swim there." Swim there? I didn't know as a young person that my talent as an athlete was swimming over the curvature of the earth, powering miles over the surface of the sea. As a sprinter, I came up to my last race. As a 16-year-old, I'm either going on that night to the elite Olympic trials for the Mexico City 68 games, or I'm going on to the rest of my life after 4:30 in the morning. 1,000 sit-ups every night for 8 years. And I remember walking down that pool deck like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. My brother and sister gave up a number of their dreams because my dream was so big. My parents made their own sacrifices so that I could go to all these meets around the country. And I'm going to get to the coach later, because that's where the true resilience comes in. But it was complicated, and it was terrifying, and it was the essence of what happens to a young person being sexually abused. I'm walking down that pool deck with that weight of the world on my shoulders, and my buddy, a butterflyer, Suzanne, her own chances, comes and she grabs me and she shakes me and she says, "What's going on? You look like you're in a fog." And I started in with the sacrifices, and she said, "Stop it now. You know it doesn't work that way. You're in this moment. You're not in the moment of reflection and perspective. That'll come a lot later. You are still fighting for what you've been dreaming of fighting for 8 years now. You get up to those blocks, all right? And you blast off with the shoulders you built for 8 years, with the heart that's made you somehow do 1,000 sit-ups every night. And when you touch that wall, don't look around the pool to where you finished. Don't look up at the scoreboard. Close your eyes and close your fists and say, I couldn't have done it a fingernail better. I guarantee you do it that way, it'll be all right. No regrets. Now I had a vision. Don't leave this much in that pool, not this much effort. And I blasted off with my shoulders and my heart. And when I touched the wall, I had no idea if I'd made it or not. I closed my eyes, I closed my fists. I said it and I meant it. I couldn't have done it a fingernail faster. I took a breath and looked up at the scoreboard, and I didn't make it. I walked into the locker room. I thought for sure a cascade of tears would flow, but they didn't. I stood there tall and proud, because it wasn't just that 100 meters that night. It was all 8 years I had done that way. And I remember, even though it was so long ago, walking out of that locker room, I remember standing in that school locker room, looking up at those millions of stars that night. And I said to myself, for the rest of your life, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter who you meet, you do it all. You do every day, so you can't do it a fingernail better. No regrets. So as it turns out, in my 20s, and maybe my father's prediction did come true, I became a champion swimmer. I became one of the best ocean swimmers in the world. I had the records for swimming around Manhattan Island and a number of other areas. But even though all those swims, the earth is 7/8 water, you can do You can do swims across many oceans, lakes, and down many rivers. Always the imagination was fluttering about Cuba. That was the geography. That was what they now call the Mount Everest of the Earth's oceans, with swimmers trying to get across. And I started to research it. And as I say, many people have asked me through my life, what have been the toughest obstacles in my life? Well, when you start to name the box jellyfish venom, the most potent venom of any animal on planet Earth. I almost died in 2011, swam into a swarm of them, tentacles wrapped around the neck, around the bicep, across the back. I was in anaphylactic shock. I felt that I had been dipped in hot burning oil. Most people, with the touch of one tentacle of the box, it's called the Irukandji syndrome, die instantaneously. They are trying to paralyze your spinal cord. They take your lungs away. And I was screaming out to Bonnie, my head handler on the boat, to our shark diver team who's swimming around me. I'm in pain, Bonnie. I can't breathe. Help me. And I made it through that night. Now I'm feeble, and I'm not directly swimming against one of the other obstacles here, which is, if you look at the map, you're going to see, if you're facing the map here, you're going to see Havana. Due north, you're going to see Key West, some 100 miles. And in between, right here, is the beginning of the mighty Gulf Stream, the most powerful body of water in terms of a current on planet Earth. And that stream here is taking up about 85 miles of the 100 of so you're in it all the time. And that stream is flowing hard at about 6.6 miles per hour, while you're trying to go north at about 2.2 miles an hour. So the math is clear. It's going to be very difficult to tack across that stream. And we had a genius mathematician of a navigator, John Bartlett, who set the new course literally every 15 minutes. Let's try a little this. Let's try a little this. Let me go talk to Bonnie and see if she can pick up her speed for a few minutes. When I survived the box jellyfish and got into dawn that next day, I wasn't swimming hard north, which you need to throughout this swim. Can never touch the boat, can never touch the kayaks. You've got to tread water on your own steam. And if you're in trouble and you're swimming weakly, you're going to be dragged to the east. If you're needing some sustenance, which you do, you come and tread water next to the boat, and Bonnie will hand me a Camelback hose, and I can take down some concoction of electrolytes. But during that 3 minutes of treading water, I'm being dragged east. So with the box jellyfish, I was weak. And now I'm swimming off to the northeast instead of due north. And then the next night, that 2011 swim, we're something like 40 hours into it now, bam, stung again the next night. And I made it through the next night again into the next day. And I don't want to sound braggartly, but the University of Miami medical team, ER doctors who were there with oxygen, with prednisone, with all kinds of things to open up the airways, will tell you that I survived those stings when I shouldn't have, when I should have died on will. There are the dangerous sharks of the tropics. As a general rule, they're just curious. They're not going to come up and take the Homo sapien, food that they don't really eat. On the other hand, an animal may not have eaten in a week. There's no bait fish out there. There are no reefs, no mackerel, tuna to feed on. And an innocent little swimmer comes by, making a little surface vibration. And they understand from two miles away with their sensitive sonar, they hear that as dying, wounded fish. And they're under us in a hurry. How am I going to thank my guys, my divers, who in the pitch black of night, we use no lights. Lights attract jellyfish, lights attract sharks. How am I going to thank my guys at night with no fatal gear, no spear guns? We kill no animals on our watch. All they have is big PVC piping triangles, and they're below me in case a shark comes fluttering up toward me and threatens me. They're going to try to punch them in their sensitive ampullae of their snouts and move them out, move them away from me. They put my life ahead of theirs. There are the tropical storms that come in at 50 miles an hour with no warning whatsoever. And we're just a small flotilla of small boats out there, could easily capsize, could lose someone, overboard. And That's just yet another, the weather factor out there. All of this confluence, comes against you. So I tried when I was young, when you're supposed to try these things. I was 28 when I first walked down to the shore in Havana, and I was cocky, brash. Jellyfish, sharks, get out of my way. Here I come. And I was humbled. 42 hours later, huge unexpected seas, 8 foot high. I'm vomiting. I'm getting stung, not by the box that time, the Portuguese men of war, which give you a slight anaphylactic shock as well. We don't make it. There's no land makeable after 42 hours. We try to put it together the next year. The weather doesn't cooperate. We can't get a 2 to 3 to 4 day window when it's optimum to try to make it across. The next year, we can't get visas to get into Cuba. And maybe it's the tragedy of sports, but it's the only profession where we, of course, must retire young. And at 30, I was getting offers from announcing for the wide world of sports for ABC, et cetera. And I gave up my beautiful Cuba dream. And over the next 30 years, I'm not going to complain. I'm traveling around the world, following the best athletes in the world pursue their excellence, trying to tell their stories to inspire other people. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of adventure, but I kept my eye on Cuba. I kept my eye on that swim. And every time a swimmer would try to make it across, I like to think myself a sporting person. I wasn't wishing them any harm or anything, but honestly, even though I was retired, why should it matter to me? When they wouldn't make it, I would do a little happy dance at home. Oh, well, toward the end of that 30 years, I was approaching the age of 60. And I hadn't paid much attention to age at all, but my mom had just died at 82. And I got thinking, is that possible? Will genetics come into play for me? And I only have a mere 22 years left to live. And then I met Christopher Reeve in his ventilator contraption. And he asked me to tell him some of my athlete stories. And I told him that fingernail story, and he loved that story. And he said to me at the end of it, well, you know the clear question. You said way back as a teenager, you were going to live every day of your life, so you couldn't live at a fingernail better. Is that the way you've been going about this life of yours? Is that, have you kept your promise to yourself? And I stuttered and stammered, and I said, Chris, I have to tell you the truth. Hardly. I have hardly been living so that I can do every day, not a fingernail better. I went back to my library at home, and I started fishing around for a poem I've read once. I don't know about you guys, but I personally do not understand poetry. It's an enigma to me. At the end of every poem I've ever read, I say to myself, why? Why don't they just use a few more words? I don't get it. But this poem had meant something to me, and I knew I needed it now. That August 2009, turning 60. It was Mary Oliver, perhaps you know her poem, The Summer's Day. And it was particularly that last brilliant line. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with this one wild and precious life of yours? I think I must have read that poem 1,000 times, especially that last line during that month. And it might have been the 1,000th time I read it. I screeched over to the side of the road. I was driving. I looked in the rearview mirror, and I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do with this one wild and precious life of mine. I'm going to go back and chase that Cuba dream, that dream that meant to me, you're going to be all you can be, and everybody around you, the team, has got to be the same. And we put it together. I was 60 years old now, but you know what? I was better. Physically, mentally. Now I believed in my team, and we failed. And then we failed again. And then we tried and we failed again. So now there are 4 failures, and now the whole world called this event 100% impossible. It will never be done, they said, by anybody of any era, any age, any gender. But I knew that this was not an event about glycogen deprivation or understanding the Gulf Stream better than our team. They say every expedition on Mother Earth, you come home from a failed expedition and you learn. You're on a steep learning curve of technology, of science, and you put it together again and you're better the next time. Well, we kept learning, and we were thrilled by the journey itself. what do they say? It's all about the journey, not the destination. But we didn't give up our pursuit of the destination. So now it comes up to be a fifth time. These teammates of mine, there are 44 of them, the shark experts, the medical experts, the navigation team, the personal handler team, the jellyfish expert. All these people never got paid a dime. They were in it for friendship, for adventure, and to make history. So here we come up to the fifth time. I'm standing on that shore again in Havana, knowing now what's out there. Bonnie came, grabbed my shoulders, and she said, let's find a way. And I took the leap of faith. And that first day was glorious. The first night was hell on earth. I was wearing a silicone mask to protect my lips and my nostrils from the jellyfish stings. I couldn't get a breath because the wind came up and I was getting slapped with walls of seawater. Now you can't have someone help you. You've got to use your own hands, and your fingertips are numb now and your tensile strength is weak to pull up the mask and clean it out, get it back on. The next day was calm again. We were making progress. John Bartlett loves our course. He loves the axis of the Gulf Stream. We're getting some luck we never had the 4 times before. And that next night was worse than the first night, if it's possible. Now I'm cold. I've lost a lot of weight. I've lost a lot of fat. I'm forgetting who I am, where I am. And Bonnie yells at me at one point and she says, listen up, listen up. Look straight ahead. Diana, what do you see? And I said, I don't see anything, Bonnie. My vision is shot. I see a black sea. I see black sky. I don't see anything. And she said, come on, we're feather up a little bit. And I said, oh, okay, wait a second. There's a filament of white light right across the center here, but the sun's coming up. The third day is coming. The sun is going to bring hope. The rays of the sun are going to warm my body. And she says, it's better than the sun. Those are the lights of Key West. This is your time. We are going to make it this time. Put your head down and let's go. Well, we didn't know there were 15 more hours to swim. But once I heard that, the lights of Key West, that was the end of it. So the stumble up onto that beach was some 7.5 years ago. And as I say, I don't want to just live in that past, in that memory. And on the other hand, my telling that story and my reliving that story brings me some courage, brings me the memory of what it takes. That issue, those people who followed that swim all around the world, they wanted to observe, not a swimmer who set a record. They wanted to observe and take to their own lives what it is to refuse to give up. They wanted to see resilience acting itself out loud. As I said before, people ask me, so what are the biggest obstacles you faced in your life? And I know what they want to hear. They want to hear that Cuba swim story because it fulfills the philosophy of resilience. But the truth is, and you will understand this like nobody else, the truth is that I stand before you here at the age of 71. And am I right? Don't I present myself to you as someone who's confident, happy, just brimming with privileges? I mentioned before traveling the world. I have the good fortune of having loving family and friends. I've been inducted to numerous halls of fame, written books. I performed my show, my one-woman show on Broadway or off-Broadway last year. I just, as I said before, just overwhelmed with the privileges of my life. And yet, by far, not even close, the toughest difficulty, the obstacle extraordinaire of my life was the sexual abuse I suffered as a young teen. My coach, that coach I introduced you to, who said, you're going to be the best swimmer in the world. My father figure, the person I trusted to take me along and develop my character, develop my strength, and send me off into the world as a parent should, full of confidence and full of joy, molested me repeatedly when I was a young teen. And I was a defiant young teen. How could I be silenced? How could my word not mean anything? Because this man was a pillar in the community, and he was a charmer. And no one could believe, and I wasn't the only one, believe me, over the years, that he would do such an heinous act, that he was such a criminal. So here I stand before you, yes, that confident, happy person. And yet, even though those events are so far in the rearview mirror that they don't surface too much anymore on a cellular level, I still am that fearful, humiliated, confused, angry little girl who went through that molestation. And I think when I read about and hear about what you do at Project Harmony, I think, what if I had had a team? What if I had had a campus to go to where people listened to me, respected me, showed me they wanted to help me, showed me that they were going to remove me from that fearful situation? Wouldn't I have gotten through the trauma more easily? Wouldn't I maybe be standing here today having had that kind of support, that kind of group that were going to go after this criminal and put him in prison? Wouldn't I stand here without that trauma still bubbling somewhere inside me? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. So I said I wished I could be with you today in Omaha. I very much want to be there with you. I want to tour Project Harmony and meet, all of your wonderful staff, Jean. I want to meet you, Dean, and your wife, Lisa, and go diving with you one day on your wonderful expeditions. And more than anything, I want to be part of the project that you're all now putting together, the initiative under Project Harmony. Be someone. Because the professionals and your caring community, all of you guys listening today who are already in, you're in all the way, you're all in to help Project Harmony do the work they do. But wouldn't it, and you've decided it would, be even a more giant success if the whole community got involved? If members of the community said, I want to be someone. I want to be someone who cares. I want to be someone who engages in stopping sexual abuse, in preventing sexual abuse and harm toward children. So I want to show you that every day I go into my gym at dawn to work out, and I flick on this neon sign, persist, because that's what I was out in the ocean, a person who persisted. That's what you are. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how rough the lives of these children are, you refuse to let them down. You persist. And today I leave you by playing my song. Okay, it's not my song. It's heard the world over, but you know it. It's Reveille. I played it every time I was on the Cuban shore. I play it every morning in my garage at dawn, much to my neighbor's dismay. And you know what it means. It means get up. Remembering my father, sleep is overrated. It means don't miss your life. Do it so you can't do it a fingernail better. And it means be someone. Thank you, Project Harmony.
Diana, that was fantastic. It's great to see you. I'm Gene. This is Dean. Thank you so much. Your message was incredible this morning. If you're okay with it, we have a few questions we'd like to ask if you're open to that.
Dean, I'm all yours. Thank you and thank you so much for having me. And I really mean it when I want to visit you in Omaha one day, if you'll have me.
Well, and I told you when we talked last week on the phone, we're very connected in the Child Advocacy Center world. Our good friends in Dallas said when you spoke to their group, you blew the room away. So you're blowing the internet away today. So we appreciate all that you're giving us. Sometimes we'll see 8 to 10 or 12 kids in our waiting room on a day. And the majority of these are young children that are coming forward who are disclosing and sharing their story of child sexual abuse or physical abuse. And occasionally we'll have adults around them who are in disbelief. There's no way this happened. That trusted adult, that coach, that person out in the community, this just impossible. How have you responded to that message through either that period of time when you were going through this or throughout your life where people don't quite believe all that you're saying? And what would you say to those professionals who are trying to empower those kids and give support to that family that we believe you?
Yeah, this is the number one issue, isn't it? I've been telling this story of my abuse since I was 21, so that's 50 years. And there are a number of people. I will say that I started with my mother. My mother, we came to peace before she died over this. She apologized with all her heart for not believing me, but she was embarrassed. A lot of times family members can't afford for that division to happen within the family. A lot of times they're very embarrassed by what the community might think, the other school members, the people around town. And a lot of times they can't face the horror that their child or someone they know is really going through this. They can't face the pillar of the community, being called a molester, a rapist. And I unfortunately have faced a few people like that myself in my life. And what means the most, which is what you guys do at Project Harmony, is sit down and give respect and show your absolute belief in the story you're being told. How can that kid get anywhere if someone isn't looking in his or her eyes and believing them and taking their word for this atrocious situation that they're going through? That's step number one. You can't get anywhere without that. I met a woman, I was giving a talk in Hilton Head, South Carolina, years ago, and an elderly woman came up afterwards, and she was trembling. A few people were standing in line to chat with me, and she said, is there any chance you'll be around today? Because I'd like to talk to you. I had shared my abuse story on stage that day. And I gave her my room number. She called me a little bit later. I invited her up and we started talking. And she had been abused by her grandfather all through her 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old years. Horrible stories. And I don't need to, speak out the particulars today, but, all of the most egregious crimes on a little girl's body and soul. And she told me that the few times she tried to tell somebody, I think one was her minister or priest, another was another family member, that they didn't believe her. And she just shut up about it. And now in her elderly years, I was the first person that she tried to tell again, and the first person who believed her. And we sat there holding hands. She sobbed and cried. Her husband was gone now, deceased. She never told him, in all those years, and they were best friends. And finally, at something like the age of 85, she was listened to. So imagine how things would have been different for her if somebody had listened and believed her much earlier on. That's step number one. What you guys do is sit down and listen to these kids.
Great, thank you.
And Diana, most of us will never accomplish or even considering attempting a death-defying event such as swimming from Florida to Cuba. And hopefully none of us will have to experience the rest of the things you've had to experience in your life. What can we learn from your experience and what you have been able to accomplish and overcome, and how can we apply that in our individual lives?
Hi, Dean. It's so nice to meet you. And I understand that your love of the ocean is under the surface. You're a diver, and with your dive adventures, you take people, to magical places. And so my experience is up on the surface, but I think we are kindred brother and sister in terms of our love of the ocean. I'd love to dive with you one day.
That'd be great. I look forward to that.
Okay, it'd be cool. So, I guess, like I'm trying to say today, Dean, is that on the one hand, yeah, this story of the Cuba swim is very eccentric. How many people, probably a handful in my lifetime, for the rest of my life, are going to try it again? It is dangerous. It's far. There are very few people even capable of doing it. So you say, well, who can relate to that? Who can relate even to the training, the hundreds, and then becomes literally thousands of hours of lonely, grueling training. But the truth is, at the bottom of it are these things that I said when I reached the shore. I was wiped out when I finally got there. 52 hours and 54 minutes of continuous swimming across this big ocean. But I somehow gathered some unconscious thoughts that came out as conscious words on the beach. And the first thing I said was, I carried 3 messages for you, to those screaming thousands of people on the beach and the 25 million people who were following on social media. I carried 3 messages for you across this ocean. Number 1 is we should never, ever give up. Number 2, you're never too old to chase your dreams. And number 3, even though it looks like the most solitary endeavor in the world, there's only one set of arms coming up all the way across. Trust me, I never would have stepped onto this beach if it weren't for my team, my dedicated, passionate team. So those messages, and we can drill down to more and more and more, have nothing to do, as I said in the beginning, with swimming or with sport. And I think that, you guys, both staff, at Project Harmony, and all of your community helping out, and then your broader community, standing up to be someone. Everybody can relate to those messages in whatever they do. They may be trying to beat cancer. They may be trying to help a 4-year-old through a horrible home situation and get him or her feeling safe again. So those are the mantras that come with my story that have nothing to do with swimming.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Great. One last quick question. You look a lot like Annette Bening, the actress. Is there some connection or some news you want to share with us?
Listen, I only wish I looked like Annette Bening, but I'm very lucky. My story, this Cuba Swim story, has now, I wrote a memoir called Find a Way. It's done fairly well around the world. As I mentioned, I did an off-Broadway show with Bonnie on stage with me last year. There's a beautiful documentary film made by director-producer Timothy Wheeler called The Other Shore. It's a majestic film. So I'm going to write a children's book this year. So there are a number of different ways my story has been out there, and I'm so gratified, so honored that there's been some inspiration from what I've done and the way I've gone about it. But now it turns out that the feature film is going to be made, and Annette Bening has signed to play me. So just as I will never look as bad as I did on that video that you saw in the beginning, I will never look as good as Annette Bening. And I guess the film is underway. They're hoping to shoot it this summer. So that's going to be a kick in the pants right there.
Well, we'll look forward to that. Well, thanks again, Diana, for spending your time with us and inspiring us to be someone in the life of a child. Before we end, I'd like to quickly draw your attention to another event that we're actually hosting with 11 other child advocacy centers across the country. We each have pooled our resources together to put on a collective event called Unite, Uniting Against Child Abuse, a national conversation. So we're going to invite you all to join us in another virtual event featuring a conversation with actor Terry Crews from America's Got Talent, as he shares his story of trauma and growing up and within the entertainment industry. This national event is going to be hosted by Sasha Newlinger. Some of you may remember Sasha. He was our keynote speaker at our 2019 Speaking of Children Luncheon. And as a token of our appreciation for your continued support and for joining us this afternoon, you all have a passcode. This is going to be a one-of-a-kind passcode. First time we've ever done a national event at no cost to you. So we hope you'll accept our invitation and join us on May 6th at that virtual event. So watch for an email from us and you'll catch all the details following today's event. So thanks again.
Thank you, Gene. As not just honorary chairs for this event, but as passionate supporters of Project Harmony and advocates for the children of our community, Lisa and I have asked many of our friends to help us support the great work Project Harmony is doing. Hopefully you've been inspired today, and if you have not had the opportunity to make a gift, please follow the instructions on the screen below. A cause is only as strong as the people who support it. And together, we can and will end child abuse. Thanks again, and have a great afternoon.